The rusty gate creaked, a mournful groan in the wind. Rain lashed against Sarah's face, cold and sharp like tiny needles. She pulled her coat tighter, her heart heavy with a familiar dread. After all these years, she was back in Hollow Creek, the town time forgot, the town she swore she'd never return to. The house loomed at the end of the gravel path, dark and imposing. Its windows, like vacant eyes, stared back at her. Memories, sharp and painful, flashed through her mind. The whispers, the accusing stares, the heavy weight of her family's secret. Taking a shaky breath, Sarah stepped onto the porch. The floorboards groaned under her weight as if echoing her own unease. This house held secrets buried deep within its walls, secrets that haunted her dreams and shadowed her waking hours. Secrets she hoped to confront, to finally escape their suffocating grip. She had a feeling, a chilling certainty, that she wouldn't leave Hollow Creek the same. Dust motes danced in the faint ray of sunlight filtering through the attic's grimy window. The air hung heavy, stale and thick with the scent of decay. Sarah coughed, covering her mouth with her sleeve. Cobwebs clung to her hair, each strand a ghostly reminder of the past. She navigated through the labyrinth of forgotten furniture and discarded toys, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The attic, like the house itself, was a graveyard of memories, each object holding the ghost of a moment long gone. Her fingers brushed against a leather-bound journal tucked away in a dusty corner. It was surprisingly heavy, as if burdened by unseen weight. Curiosity, a flickering flame in the oppressive darkness, drew her in. The journal belonged to her grandmother, a woman Sarah barely remembered. The spidery handwriting sent chills down her spine, each word crackling with a strange energy. As she delved deeper into the entries, a terrifying story unfolded, a story of shadows and whispers, of an ancient evil lurking in the heart of Hollow Creek. The story of the Soul Eater. The Soul Eater, her grandmother's journal warned, was a creature of darkness feeding on guilt and despair. It haunted the shadows, preying on those consumed by their past sins, those foolish enough to return to Hollow Creek. Sarah's breath hitched as she read the chilling descriptions of the entity. A gaunt, skeletal figure with eyes burning like hot coals and claws that could tear through flesh and bone. It was said to roam the town's outskirts, drawn to the scent of remorse, the taste of a tormented soul. Her grandmother wrote of rituals, of sacrifices made to appease the creature. Each entry was more disturbing than the last, painting a terrifying picture of a town held captive by an ancient evil. A town where even the shadows whispered secrets and the wind carried the scent of fear. Unease coiled in Sarah's stomach, cold and tight. She had dismissed her grandmother's stories as the ramblings of an old woman. Now, surrounded by the oppressive atmosphere of the attic, the journal clutched in her trembling hands, she couldn't shake off the feeling that these weren't just stories, they were warnings. As dusk settled over Hollow Creek, casting long, eerie shadows across the town, Sarah found herself drawn back to the journal. The words seemed to pulsate with an unnatural energy, drawing her deeper into their web of terror. The more she read, the more she realized the true nature of the Soul Eater's power. It didn't just prey on guilt, it fed on it. It grew stronger with every shadow of remorse, every whisper of regret, and Sarah, burdened by a lifetime of guilt, was a feast waiting to be devoured. She thought about her reason for returning, the weight of her family's secret, a leaden weight in her gut. Years ago, driven by a moment of blind anger, she had uttered words she couldn't take back, words that had shattered their family and driven her from Hollow Creek. Now the guilt of her actions gnawed at her, a constant gnawing ache. It followed her like a shadow, whispering in her ear, reminding her of the pain she had caused. And in the stillness of the old house she could almost hear a distant, echoing growl, a predator sensing its prey. The wind howled outside, a mournful cry that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. The shadows in the attic danced and twisted, taking on grotesque shapes that sent shivers crawling down Sarah's spine. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed at the edges of her composure. Her grandmother's warnings echoed in her mind. Stay away from the woods, don't let the shadows touch you, avoid the creature's gaze. What had seemed like the ravings of a delusional old woman now felt like desperate pleas for survival. She tried to distract herself, to focus on anything but the growing dread that threatened to consume her. But the journal's words, etched into her mind, refused to be ignored. The Soul Eater was drawn to guilt, to the darkness that festered within, and Sarah, harboring a secret that felt as heavy as sin itself, knew she was in terrible danger. The air seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, the silence broken only by the pounding of her own heart. Something was watching her. She could feel its gaze like a physical touch, cold and predatory. It was hunting her. Section 6. The Soul Eater's Grip. A bone-chilling cold seeped into the room despite the old house's warmth. Sarah drew back the heavy velvet curtains, her heart pounding against her ribs. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a dusky, unsettling twilight. Shadows stretched and twisted, reaching for the house with long, skeletal fingers. A low growl, barely audible but undeniably present, vibrated in the air. It seemed to emanate from the woods beyond the garden, the same woods her grandmother had warned her about. The woods where the Soul Eater lurked. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, threatening to suffocate her. She had to get out, had to escape the suffocating darkness that seemed to press in on her from all sides. But as she turned to flee, a figure emerged from the shadows of the room. Tall and skeletal, with eyes that burned like hot coals, it stood silently, its gaze fixed on Sarah. A wave of terror so potent it stole her breath washed over her. This was no figment of her imagination, no trick of the light. This was the Soul Eater, and it had come for her. Section 7. Facing the darkness. The Soul Eater glided closer, its movements eerily smooth, defying the laws of physics, its skeletal fingers tipped with claws that glinted like obsidian in the dim light reached for her. Sarah stumbled back, her heart pounding, a frantic tattoo against her ribs. Fear, raw and primal, surged through her, but beneath the terror a spark of defiance flickered to life. She wouldn't surrender to this creature, wouldn't let it consume her as it had consumed so many others. Gathering her courage, Sarah stood her ground. "What do you want?" she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. The creature tilted its head, a grotesque parody of curiosity. Its silence was more terrifying than any roar could have been. It was then that Sarah understood. It didn't want to hurt her, not physically. It wanted something far more insidious. It wanted her guilt, her pain, her very soul. And as its shadowy form loomed ever closer, she knew she had a terrifying choice to make. Section 8. The Ultimate Sacrifice. The Soul Eater's presence filled the room, a suffocating weight that pressed down on Sarah, threatening to crush her. Its eyes, burning like embers in the darkness, seemed to bore into her very soul, reflecting the guilt and pain she had carried for so long. She thought of her family, the family she had hurt so deeply. The memory of their pain, their accusing eyes, tore at her heart. It was her fault they were in danger, her fault the Soul Eater had come to Hollow Creek. A horrifying thought took root in her mind, a seed of despair blooming into a terrifying possibility. What if the only way to save them was to offer herself in their place? Could she bear the weight of another's guilt, the burden of their sins? Tears streamed down Sarah's face, a mixture of terror and a strange, unsettling acceptance. She was trapped, caught between the creature before her and the love she still held for her family. As the Soul Eater drew closer, she knew there was only one choice left to make, a choice that would decide not only her fate, but the fate of those she loved most. Section 9. A Legacy of Shadows. The air crackled with a strange energy as Sarah made her decision. She would confront the darkness, face the creature on its own terms. But she would not offer herself as a sacrifice. Instead, she would offer something far more potent, far more dangerous. The truth. With a trembling voice, Sarah began to speak, her words echoing in the stillness of the attic. She confessed her sins, her guilt and regret spilling out into the open. She spoke of the secrets that had haunted her family for generations, the darkness that had festered in the shadows of Hollow Creek. The Soul Eater recoiled, a low growl rumbling in its chest as if the words themselves caused it pain. It writhed, its form flickering as if buffeted by an unseen force. Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength with every word. She spoke of her family's pain, their shared burden of guilt, and her own desperate desire for redemption. And as the last vestiges of darkness fled from the attic, Sarah was left standing alone, bathed in the soft light of dawn. The Soul Eater was gone, vanished into the ether, its hold on Hollow Creek broken. But as Sarah stepped out into the new day, she knew that some shadows, some secrets could never truly be erased. They would remain etched into the very fabric of the town, a constant reminder of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface, waiting for the chance to rise again.